Susan told police she had been stopped at a red light at an intersection in Union, South Carolina when a black man with a gun forced his way into her red Mazda. She claimed the man ordered her to drive for some time before making her stop on a rural road. Then, she said, he forced her out of the vehicle and drove off, taking her 2 sons, 3-year-old Michael and 14-month-old Alex, still strapped in their car seats with him.
I was stopped at a red light, and just out of nowhere, this black guy came up and just opened the door and jumped in the car. And he had a gun, and he had it pointed in my side and told me to drive. And so I did. And when
I'm gonna highlight the guy's facial expression right now, bro. As she's talking about this random black guy that came up to her, and the fact that as she's talking about it, he's thinking to himself, okay, that's kind of strange. That's kind of odd. A random black guy at night just approached you with a gun. Yeah, that's weird though. Like you could see the wheels turning in his face. He's like, that's kind of odd. In today's video, I'm going to review a story that I have watched in the past. It was a story that was very fascinating to me, and it is a story about Susan Smith. All right, so Susan Smith was the mom who made a very bad decision years ago when she unalived her children. This is a story that fascinated me when I first saw it when I was a kid, and I wanted to go ahead and do a review on this. For those of you who are new to my channel, my name is Joseph with Joseph Teaches Power Dynamics. I focus on power dynamics because it helps us understand relationship with self, relationship between two people, romantic type, relationship when it comes to groups, and relationship when it comes to society. Understanding power dynamics is key to understanding what's happening with you and your relationships. You want to learn whether you're being controlled. You want to learn what's happening in your relationship, whether you're in a positive or negative relationship dynamics. You want to also understand if you're being controlled, whether by a group, whether by society, or whether by different things. The key objective about understanding power dynamics is understanding the effects it has on you and other people, and learning how to take control over it. Now, if you're someone that wants to learn a lot more about power dynamics, hopefully by the time you see this video, I'll have courses in Patreon. But if not yet, I have a video on power dynamics, actually 2 videos on power dynamics that I put up on the channel from years ago. I have to apologize. This was about 2 or 3 years ago, about 3 years ago. And those videos, as much as I enjoy the videos, those videos was how I used to be when I was figuring out the YouTube thing. But the information in those videos are very good. I recommend you watch those videos if you want to learn more about what I'm talking about when it comes to understanding power dynamics. Today's video, I'm going to be reviewing a video it's called How to Make an Entire Nation Hate You, Susan Smith 2025, Crime A to Z. So this YouTuber does a great job when it comes to these type of stories. It's like a summary video where they review everything. So we're going to jump into the video. Things that I'm looking at the power dynamics flow within the video. I'm looking at the mentality of the individuals in the video. I'm giving my personal take on the video, as well as my analysis of when it comes to what's going on as it pertains to power dynamics. If you want to watch the full video, the link will be in the description below. If you're someone who likes my point of view on these videos, likes my take on things, I want you to like the video, subscribe to the channel, support us as we're pushing for 10,000 subscribers. And with that being said, let's get into the video.
I want to say to my babies that your mama loves you so much. I just feel in my heart that you're okay. We will do anything we will to help you to get them home. Please bring them home.
A composite picture of the suspect is already up in storefront windows.
Did you believe her?
Yeah. Everybody believed her.
I did.
Well,
Why did you?
my body got something wasn't right from the beginning.
I did not have anything to do with the abduction of my children.
Welcome back to Crime A to Z, where we detail cases and criminals from their very beginning until well after other reporting ends. Today, we're diving deep into a case you very likely already heard of, the Susan Smith case. A mother, 2 young boys, a bold kidnapping, and tearless pleas for help broadcast across the nation. But as the days passed, the pieces were not fitting together. What was happening behind the scenes while the world was searching? What wild backstory and tangled motives set this tragedy in motion? And what have the past 30 years made impossible to ignore? Hold on tight while we unravel this case and the beyond cold-hearted woman behind it, from A to Z. Let's go. On October 25, 1994, Susan Smith stood in front of cameras pleading for the safe return of her 2 young sons.
I can't express how much they are wanted back home, how much we love them, we miss them.
Next to her, David Smith, the boy's father, remained supportive. He looked shaken, but composed.
I would like to take the time to plead to the American public that you please do not give up on these 2 little boys in the search for their return safe home to us. That you continue to look for this car, these 2, our children, and for the suspect himself, that you continue to keep your eyes open, and anything that you see that might would help to please call and let it be known. We ask that you continue to pray for me and my wife and for our family, but most of all that you continue to pray the American public, continue to pray for Michael and Alex, that they are returned home safely to their mother and father and the family members who love them so much, that you pray most of all for them, and that they are being taken care of, and that they are safe, and that they will return home safely.
All right, guys, I'm going to give a heads up, a fair warning disclaimer. I love these type of videos, and I might be over. I'm going to be very analytical with these videos. So if you're somebody that don't like analysis of videos like this, the link of the full video is in the description. I'm giving you a heads up warning. I'm going to be very analytical in this video. If you want me to be analytical and you like me being analytical, please, I beg you, watch along. If you don't want me to be analytical that much, you could watch the full link of the video at the bottom. This is one of those videos that I'm not really focused on it doing super well. I'm doing it as a passion project. So I want the video to do well. I want you to watch the full video, get all my reactions, my take, my point of view and everything. But if you're not someone that has the patience to watch the video with my commentary and my full review, you can always watch the full video on your own or watch any of my other videos. But for this particular video and these type of videos, I'm going to be very analytical. With that being said, this is my take on everything. So based on that press run, right, the one that they did right here, one of the things that I noticed that she kept doing is she kept looking down and nodding her head, right?
Plead to the American public that you please do not give up.
The biggest thing that I'm noticing here is the way he put his hand around her shoulder, right? And the fact that she's making herself seem kind of small as she keeps going up and down.
Safe home to us.
We miss them.
Next to her,
Do not give up on these 2 little boys in the search for their.
So based on what I'm seeing right now, with him put his arms around her and he seems as though he's kind of like rubbing her shoulders. He's rubbing her shoulders, right? This mechanism right here that he's doing is something that she wanted. She wanted him to start showing interest in her all over again. And it seems as though she's kind of happy that this is getting his attention, right? He looks very grieved, very stressed about the whole situation, and in a deep sadness at the loss of his children, his sons. And she just seems like she's happy. Even look at that little smile on her face, a small little faint smile there. It just seems to me as though, based on the relationship dynamics between these two, it seems to me as though he ended a relationship with her, and she's seeing this as an opportunity to rekindle some kind of romantic sparks between the two of them. And this is probably the most attention she's gotten from him in a while. And so yeah, it's really sick that she did this to get his attention. But that's just my speculation off of her body language. She's acting as though this man is back in relationship with her, and her body language is given that she's happy that he's right there with her.
To look for this car, these two, our children, and for the son home safely.
Susan told police she had been stopped at a red light at an intersection in Union, South Carolina, when a black man with a gun forced his way into her red Mazda. She claimed the man ordered her to drive for some time before making her stop on a rural road. Then, she said, he forced her out of the vehicle and drove off, taking her two sons, 3-year-old Michael and 14-month-old Alex, still strapped in their car seats with him.
I was stopped at a red light, and just out of nowhere, this black guy came up and just opened the door and jumped in the car. And he had a gun, and he had it pointed in my side and told me to drive. And so I did. And
I'm gonna highlight the guy's facial expression right now, bro. As she's talking about this random black guy that came up to her, and the fact that as she's talking about it, he's thinking to himself, okay, that's kind of strange. That's kind of odd. A random black guy at night just approached you with a gun? Yeah, that's weird though. Like you could see the wheels turning in his face. He's like, that's kind of odd. And while she just seems to just be creating like a story along the way, and the reason why I believe this to be the case is because as she's talking, her eyes keep closing and opening. It just seems to me as though she's creating this fictional story to kind of justify why this thing happened to her, which we know wasn't the case. But let's continue.
I tried to ask him why he was doing this or whatever. He just told me to shut up or he'd kill me. So I just kept driving. My babies were in the back seat and they were crying. And I tried to tell him everything was going to be okay. He told me to get out. And I said, well, can I get my children? And he said, no. He said, I don't have time for that. And they were just crying.
And also, so yeah, she's talking. Her head is disagreeing with what she's saying. I'm not a body language expert by any chance, but I did study a little bit about body language when I was younger. When someone's head is going the opposite way as they're making a statement, so like when they're making a statement and the head is going side to side, that means that their body, i.e. their essence, their body, i.e. their brain, is disagreeing with what they're saying. How can I say this? Okay, so let me put this in words that would make sense to you as a viewer. A human being is broken into 4 parts: the brain, the body, the conscious and subconscious mind. Our subconscious mind programs our autopilot behavior. Our brain defaults to what it is that it feels is best for us. Our conscious mind is the one that has to take control occasionally, right? And our body responds to everybody. So her subconscious mind doesn't like her lying. So because the subconscious mind does not like her lying, it's causing her to shake her head in disagreement with what she's saying. Her brain, knowing that she herself is lying, is causing her to make the statement herself, i.e., putting the story of the black man in her mouth, and her conscious mind, out of fear of being caught, is cultivating a crazy story through her active imagination. Long story short, she's seen a lot of movies of black guys being arrested, and she decided to go ahead and create one for herself, and decides to, put that in front of the press, hoping that, people will believe her. But what she really is happy about is the fact that this guy is back in the picture in her life. That's just based on what I'm observing. Let's continue.
Panicked and disoriented, Susan ran toward a nearby home, frantically pounding on the door for help. A resident answered and quickly called 911.
Yeah, there's a lady that come up that door, and some guy jumped into a red light with her car, with her 2 kids in it, and he took off, and she got out of the car here at our house.
And he's got the kids?
Yes, ma'am, in her car. And she's real hysterical, and I just decided I need to call the law and get them down here.
Get them going, Pam. They got 2 kids.
Police arrived within minutes and immediately launched a search. For the next 9 days, the entire nation was gripped by the heartbreaking ordeal of a young mother pleading for her children's safe return. 2 young children being abducted by a stranger had people on high alert. Roadblocks were set up and Amber Alerts were issued, while flyers with Michael and Alex's faces were posted in stores and gas stations. Investigators reviewed security footage, checked traffic cameras, and questioned witnesses. But no one had seen any carjacking that night. Authorities expanded their search across Union County and beyond. Countless officers, volunteers, and search dogs combed through rural roads and wooded areas. Lakes and rivers were checked, but nothing turned up. Helicopters scoured highways for any trace of the Mazda protege. Investigators also searched crime reports of similar incidents, but no cases matched Susan's story.
I have just one question about this whole situation, and maybe there's something that's a little bit intriguing to me. The first question that I have about this whole situation is, how did the press get a hold of this? How did the press get a hold of this story? Who did she have to call to get that interview set up with the local news channel? Did they have someone on the inside? That's one of the things that I've always wondered, even when I was a kid. I'm like, how did they know about this missing story? Like, how did they set up the whole thing to come interview her? What effort was put forth to make her this level of famous, to the point of having all these people waste their time searching for the kids when she knew all along that she was in the first place? I appreciate the fact that she had enough influence on people to elicit the search and investigation that was done, but I still find it a bit interesting and a little bit surprising on how it caught wind in the media. That's just the thought that I have. Is if anybody who knows a lot more detail about it, of how she gained the national attention, if you have details about it, I would love for you to put it in the comment section, because for me, I'm very fascinated to understand how she became well known, how she got that press, how she got all that attention from the whole city. But let's continue.
The case quickly gained national attention. News networks broadcast Susan's pleas, and families across the country followed every update. If you had a TV on during that time, it was nearly impossible to avoid the coverage. Susan's face became a national image of a grieving mother, appearing on every major news station. News crews flooded Union, capturing every development. Local residents helped organize community searches, and businesses donated food and supplies for search crews. Residents even left their porch lights on in solidarity, hoping the boys would be brought home safely. The FBI joined the investigation, and tips poured in as Susan's public pleas continued. But behind the scenes, investigators were starting to have doubts. Over the next few days, they kept pushing her, digging deeper with every conversation. They noticed that Susan's demeanor fluctuated. At press conferences, she appeared distraught and emotional, but other times she seemed calm and detached, especially in private conversations with officers. One detective noted how Susan seemed almost giddy about one of her sit-down television interviews. Before it began, she turned to David, wide-eyed and incredulous, as if excited about being on TV.
Yeah, you're right about that, because look at that facial expression.
One of her sit-down television interviews. Before it began, she turned to David, wide-eyed and incredulous, as if excited.
See, look at that smile on her face. Bro, this is a woman who's missing David. That's all it was. This is a woman that was missing David, man. The facial expression says, I'm happy to see you, David. I miss you so much, David. I hate that you left me, David. I'm glad you're back in my life, David. And David's over here looking like, oh, shoot. I gotta deal with this stress and I gotta deal with this woman again. Oh my goodness. Well, let's manage together because it's about the kids. So it strikes me as David was there for the kids. That's all it's like. The way David is moving in this documentary, the way he's expressing, like everything about David just strikes me as, I can't believe I have to deal with this woman again, but I'm dealing with her because of the kids. Let's find these kids. Let's figure out what happened with his kids. And then this way I can, I could be in a much better place.
Excited about being on TV. Then, as soon as the cameras started rolling, she shifted into her grieving mother persona. She was reveling in the spotlight. Meanwhile, 24-year-old David sat beside her, shell-shocked, his expression never changing. Officers also noted that Susan wasn't asking any questions about the search for her sons. Parents of missing children usually wanted
She wasn't asking any questions about her sons because she knew what happened with her sons. A lot of people don't understand that, but it's pretty obvious, I guess. I wanted to say that because when people are truly grieving, they are going to ask the right questions. But let me continue.
constant updates. What was being done? Had police checked new areas? Did they have any leads? But Susan was uncharacteristically passive, waiting for detectives to approach her rather than demanding answers. And when she was alone, her behavior was even stranger. She was seen laughing and chatting casually when she thought no one was watching. Investigators noted her mood shifts, how she could go from sobbing in front of cameras to being composed in private. And speaking of sobbing, that term is being generous, because officers weren't the only ones who noticed that her tearful pleas never seemed to produce any actual tears. And then there were the details of her story that didn't quite add up. She claimed the carjacker forced her to drive around for nearly an hour before making her pull over.
An hour? For real? At what, 12 a.m. in the morning? With a gun to your head? With your kid in the back seat? Oh my God. Yeah, man. That makes a lot of sense why she got caught. I think the reason why I think it doesn't make sense, besides the obvious, is the fact that a gunman would hold a gun to your head for an hour. That don't make sense. That don't make any sense.
But when police retraced her route, they found no witnesses, no security footage, and no evidence to support her timeline. And then there was the red light. Susan initially told police she had been stopped at a red light on Monarch Mills Road when the man approached her car. But late at night, the traffic lights were timed, so a red light would only be triggered by cross traffic and would not stay red for as long as she reported. And no one reported seeing a stranded woman or a struggle at the intersection. There was also a lack of physical evidence. There were no tire marks where Susan claimed she had been forced out of the vehicle and the assailant sped off. No one had seen Susan's Mazda. No sightings. Nothing. By the third day of searching, investigators stopped focusing on finding the carjacker and started focusing on Susan. At first, investigators kept their suspicions quiet, still treating the case publicly as an active search. But behind the scenes, they were now gathering evidence against Susan. They started by re-interviewing her, asking her to go over her story again, slowly and in detail. Each time she retold it, the timeline shifted slightly. She could not remember exactly how long the carjacker had forced her to drive. She wasn't sure which direction she had been facing at the red light. She said she struggled when the man pushed her out of the car, yet there were no injuries or signs of a struggle on her or at the scene where she claimed the incident occurred. The more she talked, the more her story unraveled. So they had her undergo a polygraph test.
I would say the reason why they started to, question her more and start to realize, I think they start to realize that her story just kept changing because it was untrue. And they were just trying to confirm something that they already knew. which is pretty obvious. Like, this guy does a great job with this. So I almost feel bad interrupting it to give my commentary or my take on it. So here's what I'm going to do then. I'm going to highlight some key things that I'm noticing. So in this scenario with her, it seemed as though society truly liked her as a woman who needed help with the loss of her kids. So the distress role that she played affected everybody to show empathy on her. But when the rubber met the road and the real investigators who were expert when it comes to body language and also stories and things of that nature looked into it, they realized that she was not telling the truth because her stories kept changing, which is a sign of someone who is unsure about their story, and also someone who is necessarily, they've gotten what they wanted from the attention and now they're trying to forget about it. But I don't think she realized, yes, you got the attention of the man that left you, i.e. David, but you forgot the fact that you made up the story on the spot. So because you made up the story on the spot, of course it's going to change. That's why she's in trouble. But let's continue.
2 of them. She failed both of them. And while not admissible in court, they revealed to police that Susan had something to hide. As the days passed, those polygraph failures, along with the inconsistencies in her statements, would get leaked to the public.
It's got me all puzzled now. Because she failed it 2 times.
She's like, yo, guys, listen. I just woke up this morning. It's a Saturday morning. I'm trying to do my gardening stuff. And you guys out here asking me questions about this woman? Are you guys like, come on, man. I'm only doing this because you guys are asking me. But to be really honest, I ought to be planting my garden somewhere. That's the energy I'm getting from this woman right here. But let's continue.
And there's something wrong somewhere or another.
Fully convinced that Susan was being truthful about the encounter, David tried his best to appease her, telling her she was just failing the polygraphs because she was distraught from all that she had been through. He coached her on how to relax during the tests, but he also noticed how she was more worried about whether people thought she was lying than she was about their boys. But law enforcement saw things differently. With each passing day, detectives grew even more certain that Susan was lying. So they called her in for another interrogation. It had been 9 days since their boys had gone missing. And before her interview with police, she and David sat down that morning for what would end up being their final TV interview.
I think it takes a very sick and emotionally unstable person to be able to take 2 beautiful children like that, to be able to keep them from their parents.
Then it was time for her police interview.
And,
Yep. I knew I wasn't tripping. They're holding hands. They are holding hands, bro. This is what she wanted all along. She wanted David back in her life. That's all this was. She wanted David back in her life. That's all this to her. This is, I'm getting David back in my life. That's all this is to her. And that's why she keeps forgetting her alibi. Because her alibi was never supposed to be an alibi. She wanted to get rid of her kids so that she could be with David for whatever the reason may be. And this was the ultimate opportunity to get back in connection with David. I would not be surprised if David and her were enjoying each other privately. I would not be surprised if David has shown her the most compassion based on this incident. It just seems as though this is her trying to get David back in her life. David had been detached the whole time. Look at his facial expression. He's staring off into space. That's how you know a man who's really kind of like grieving and thinking about his loss. And she's over here trying to come up with some kind of story. And she just keeps talking in such a detached way. But yeah, it just strikes me based on the body language that this is her way of getting back together with David.
Able to take 2 beautiful children like that, to be able to keep them from their parents.
Then it was time for her police interview. Sheriff Howard Wells, who also happened to be Susan's godfather, directly confronted Susan about her story, telling her that he knew she was lying about the carjacking. He pointed out that she could not have been stopped at the red light on Monarch Mills Road if there were no other cars around. He reminded her that she had already revised her statement to account for that inconsistency, but even her backup story didn't hold up. Then Wells revealed something Susan had not expected.
All right, so I want to say something about this guy. I think it's Wells, this Wells individual. So this Wells individual, one of the biggest things that I like about him is he actually utilized intimidation to kind of leak out the truth from her, right? So he realized the kind of person she is, that because she's making up the story, that there's some truth there, but she may have mixed it up with a lie. And he wanted to suss out the lie. As excuse me for saying it that way, but he wanted to bring out the lie out from her lips and dig in there to cause her to reveal the truth of what really happened, right? And so by playing to her fear, he controlled her into giving him the truth by making the statements such as, I know you're lying, and here's why. He put her in a position where she is now having to, figure out how to get out of this mess, because she created a web of lies and she tried to reinforce those lies. But because she kept changing her story, and because he brought that to her attention, her mind went, oh man, I can't keep getting away with this lie. So now she felt compelled to be honest. It strikes me as Susan is someone who's accustomed to telling the truth a lot more than she is lying. So when someone is accustomed to telling the truth a lot more than they are lying, and they are trying to hold up a lie, the lie will keep changing and changing and changing until the truth finally comes out. The lies that she's been saying, right, becomes less and less credible over time, because as she keeps trying to hold up the lie, she starts to realize it's a lot more work to do that. And so now that causes her to want to tell the truth more. So the fact that he played to that emotion lets me know that he's very good at what he does, and he did a great job pulling it out of her.
He told her that undercover officers had been stationed at that intersection that night for a drug investigation, and that they did not see any carjacker. Her back was against the wall. Wells told Susan that he would have to go public with the truth. Her false accusation had caused tension within Union's black community, and he couldn't allow the lie to stand. At that moment, Susan asked him to pray with her. As their prayer ended, Wells looked at her and said, "Susan, it is time." She dropped her head and began to sob, repeating how ashamed she was. Then, in a moment of desperation, she asked Sheriff Wells for his gun to use on herself. When he asked why, she said, "You don't understand. My children are not all right." She then described the crushing isolation that she had felt driving along Highway 49 that night. She had planned to take her sons to her mother's house, but her emotional state was so overwhelming that she believed not even her mother could help her. She spoke about her lifelong feelings of loneliness, failure, and despair, and about her abortion and her troubled marriage to David. Susan agreed to give a written confession. She began carefully filling 2 pages. She wrote in rounded script, drawing little hearts when she wrote the word heart. In her confession, she explained that she had originally planned to drive into the lake alone. But then she said she believed her children would be better off with God than they would be left behind without a mother. She wrote, "I had no hope. I couldn't be a good mom anymore, but I didn't want them to grow up without a mom." She said she was ready to go down that ramp into the water, and I did go part way. But I stopped. I went again, and stopped. She said she tried 3 times to let the car roll into the water, shifting it into neutral. But each time she pulled the parking brake before it could move forward. Then, standing outside the car and overcome with grief and desperation, she reached in one last time and let go. She wrote, "I was an absolute mental case. I couldn't believe what I had done. I never meant to hurt them. My children, Michael and Alex, are with our Heavenly Father now, and I know that they will never be hurt again. As a mom, that means more than words could ever say." The car, with Michael and Alex strapped inside, rolled forward, disappearing into the dark waters of the lake. And Susan walked away. The truth about her son's disappearance was no longer a mystery, but the darker truth behind what led to it all was yet to unfold. The uncomfortable details began spilling out when detectives asked Susan why she did it. She admitted that it revolved around the contents of a letter. But to understand the letter and why it mattered so much, we first have to look back at the slow-motion disaster that had been Susan Smith's life up until that point. Susan Lee Vaughn was born on September 26, 1971 in Union, South Carolina. When she was 6 years old, her father, Harry Vaughn, died by suicide.
Oh, man. Wow. That is, man, that's kind of sad. I didn't think I would feel bad for this woman. Jeez, that's really sad that her dad unalived himself. I mean, it makes a lot of sense why she had the thoughts, a lot of thoughts also, because she comes from a family, a background where someone in the family that, that was her parent unalived himself. And so she initially wanted to unalive herself, but it seemed as though she kind of changed her mind and decided to unalive the kids instead. So I don't know, something about that is a bit psychopathic to me. Like she might be psychotic, but yeah, that's kind of sad. But let's continue.
Mother Linda Vaughn later married Beverly Russell, a local businessman and active member of the Christian Coalition. As a teenager, Susan reported that Beverly had sexually abused her, which he later.
Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Okay, wow. Not expect that. Whew, that explains so much of why she's like this. Like, to lose your biological dad who unalived himself, and then the stepdad that your mom brought into the picture, like as assaulting you. Yeah, that's crazy. That explains so much.
Admitted to. After high school, Susan took a job at Conso Products, a textile company in Union. It was there that she met David Smith and the two began dating. Their relationship moved quickly, and in March 1991, when Susan was 19 years old, they got married. The marriage was unstable from the beginning. Both Susan and David were involved in extramarital affairs, and their relationship was marked by frequent arguments and separations.
Man, bro, we got unalived father. We got assault by stepdad. We got her married at 19 years old, right? So she has instability. We got a married extramarital affair, so that means her and her husband were engaging in sex activities with other people. Um, it's just a recipe for disaster, man. It's like a slow buildup of complete and utter failure, man. This was leading to a disastrous end. Man, it makes a lot of sense why she ended up becoming so crazy, but it still doesn't justify what she did because that was sick.
Despite the turmoil, they had two children together, Michael in 1991 and Alex in 1993.
Man, they would be around my age. If those kids were still alive, they would be, what, 30, 33 and 35. So they would be grown adults with probably their own children by now if they were still alive.
Financial struggles added to the couple's marital problems. They lived in a modest home in Union, and while both worked, money was tight. Susan had expensive tastes and reportedly resented their financial situation. Susan and David separated multiple times, and in May 1994, they officially divorced.
Oh, man, bro. So we got unalive father, assault by stepdad, married, at 19, extramarital affair, multiple breakup, and a divorce. That's what, five, that's six issues right there leading up to her being psychotic. It just strikes me based on what I'm hearing that there was a lot of friction in their household because of control issues. I think honestly that David, based on what I'm seeing, based on this documentary and based on the story I'm seeing, it seems as though David was trying his very best to have a stabilizing household with this woman. And it seemed as though she was someone that was so accustomed to toxicity that anytime that he tried to like make peace with her, they'll make peace for a short period of time, and then she'll start acting up again and start acting up again. And then they'll get into a whole big fight, a whole big disagreement. And then over time, a couple of days later, a couple of weeks later, a couple of months later, David would initiate it for them to make peace again, and then they'll try to make peace again, and they'll make peace for a certain period of time, and then she would elicit yet another toxicity, and eventually he just got tired of it. He just got sick and tired of having to keep fighting with her, keep having to go through the emotional roller coaster. He decided to finally end it permanently. He's like, I'm done splitting with you. I'm done with this constant breakup. I want out. And I think that I believe that psychology got the most and worst out of her.
So despite appearing as a couple in front of the cameras, David and Susan had actually been legally divorced for months. And while they remained connected through their sons, Susan had started moving on with her personal life. Not long after the divorce, she became involved with someone new. This new relationship quickly became the center of Susan's attention, and as she would reveal to investigators, a key part of what led to her boys being at the bottom of a lake. His name was Tom Findley. He was the son of her boss, Akonso. By all accounts, he was nothing like David.
Okay, so she went from a young man who's closer to her age to messing with a man who's much older, who is a boss, right, in terms of her job. So it just strikes me as she was a woman that was kind of nagging a lot at David at home, and David was just distancing himself from her. And so she had an emotional need that was no longer being satisfied by David, and she decided to attach that to someone else. It just strikes me as a woman who knew that she was fairly attractive and gets a lot of attention from men, and took advantage of that situation. Like I said, it just strikes me as, because she comes from a very toxic home, she's projecting and carrying that over to other people that she's meeting along the way in her life.
He came from a well-known local family and had the kind of wealth and status that Susan had always seemed to crave. But, by her own admission, Susan was also sleeping with her boss, Tom's father. Which brings us back to her confession. And
Wow. The story keeps getting more and more crazy. Crazy. So we got unalive father, assault stepfather, married at 19, so she was still developing. Multiple breakup with her husband at the time. Extramarital affair with the boss for job. Extramarital affair with the boss's dad. Right? Constantly nagging this man that she's married to. Yeah, this is crazy. This is a woman who felt trapped in her life. I'm not just fine what she did, still no excuse to it, but it just strikes me as though she's a woman that has been so used to bad decisions being made in her whole life. Now she's making bad decisions herself, and now she's gone a step too far at this point, because now she made a bad decision. Now she made a bad decision that's so bad that she can't even come back from it. And that is the fact that she unalived her boys.
that letter. Tom was justifiably not pleased that Susan was sleeping with his father. That admission, which Susan later recanted, was just one of several reasons he decided to end things with her. He outlined them all in a letter to her, stating in part, "You will without a doubt make some lucky man a great wife, but unfortunately, it won't be me. We come from two different backgrounds." He encouraged Susan to avoid getting involved with married men. He also said, "Susan, I could really fall for you, but like I told you, some things are not suited for me. And yes, I am talking about the children. I do not want children, and I don't want the responsibility of your children either. I am sure that your kids are good kids, but it really wouldn't matter how good they may be. The fact is, I just don't want children. These feelings may change one day, but I doubt it." His final statement to her was, "You have to make your own decisions in life, but remember, you have to live with the consequences of those decisions." In her confession letter, Susan openly admitted that Tom's rejection was at the heart of her despair and her deadly decision.
I don't believe her. I know that Tom was a man that she loved, And I know that the letter that Tom wrote to her was disheartening and heartbreaking. But I really think, to be truly transparent with you, I think that the real issue was that the husband that she was married to, oh, I think the guy had divorced her. Oh, wait, did he divorce her yet? Yes, I think he eventually divorced her, right? The man that she was married to before the divorce happened, i.e., her husband, she was kind of projecting what she wanted in him with Tom. So in her mind, Tom is the rich version of her husband. And so she's heartbroken. She's heartbroken not because Tom was no longer interested. She's heartbroken because Tom, the symbol of what she believed her husband should have been, had no longer wanted to be with her due to decisions that she made to sleep with Tom's dad. So long story short, she knew she was a disaster. And she knew that that disaster that she was is now affecting multiple people in her life, including her husband and the new man that she was having extramarital affair with. So long story short, she was just setting herself up for failure and disaster. And it all started with the situation that happened with her as a little girl, where her father unalived himself and the mother brought in an assault individual into her house, into her life.
She wrote, "I was in love with someone very much, but he didn't love me and never would." With her confession now on record, investigators formally placed Susan under arrest for 2 counts of murder. Before making any announcements or notifying family, authorities worked to confirm Susan's statements. They sent in divers to locate the submerged vehicle and the boys' bodies in John D. Long Lake. Using sonar equipment, they located a vehicle submerged about 122 feet from the shore, resting in 18 feet of water. As the car was pulled out, it became immediately clear that the 2 boys were still inside, strapped into their car seats just as Susan had described. Authorities at the scene visibly reacted, some turning away, others appearing emotional as the reality set in. Emergency personnel confirmed the deaths of Michael and Alex Smith. Once the vehicle was fully removed, forensic teams began their examination. The car doors were locked, reinforcing Susan's admission that she had intentionally left her sons trapped inside as the car sank. With the vehicle and bodies recovered, the case against Susan Smith was now fully confirmed with physical evidence. The sheriff announced Susan's arrest, but by then her confession had already been leaked to the media. So, David and Susan's family found out that Susan had killed her own sons the way the rest of the world did, on television.
I have another question. So you guys could probably put in the comment if you guys are engaging with the video. Who leaked the statement? Who leaked it to the press? How did that happen? I still have questions about that as well. I always wondered, how did that get leaked to the press? So whoever it is that knows more about the story, put it in the comment section on how this got leaked, because I'm very curious about it.
Susan Smith has been arrested and will be charged with 2 counts of murder in connection with the deaths of her children, Michael 3 and Alexander 14 months.
Overnight, Susan Smith became the most reviled woman in the country.
Susan Smith is being arraigned in Union, South Carolina this morning and confessed to killing her 2 young sons.
The crime horrified the nation.
And I would like to wear this white rose this morning for those 2 sweet children.
People who had prayed for Michael and Alex's safe return were now horrified. The town of Union, which had rallied behind her, felt betrayed. People who had supported her during the search turned against her. Some of her own family members even distanced themselves from her.
And I just couldn't believe that somebody could do that to their children.
There's no reason on this earth for a mother to do that to her children.
Did you believe her?
Yeah. Everybody believed her.
I did.
Well,
my body got
something wasn't right from the beginning.
The media frenzy exploded with headlines calling her a monster and the most hated mother in America. When Susan was taken into custody, an angry crowd was there to greet her. But the outrage wasn't just about what she had done. It was also about who she had blamed. For 9 days, Susan had let the country believe that a black man had kidnapped her children at gunpoint, stoking racial fears and leading to unwarranted suspicion cast on innocent people. Her lie hit especially hard in Union, a town with a long and complicated history of racial tension and division. But Susan's mother, Linda Russell, felt differently. She was furious at how the media portrayed her daughter, stating, "We wanted Susan tried in a court of law, not in the press. They have brutalized her. I think you all ought to be ashamed of yourselves."
I don't know. Ma'am, no. No, ma'am, no. You did not make a good decision as a mom. You did not invest the time to train her properly. You made the worst decisions when it came to men. And you're over here being upset at the press. The press that she willfully put herself in front of, the cameras that she willfully interviewed in front of. It seemed more to me like she was chasing fame than anything else, ma'am. She wanted to be famous. Like, how are you? Oh, you brutalized her. Nobody brutalized that woman. She did it all to herself when she lied. And when she did what she did first with unaliving the kids and lying about it. She did it to herself. I think the reason why the mom responded that way is because the mom felt guilty because she felt as a mom. And she's now seeing herself in her daughter. And she's hoping that her daughter will get that mercy treatment. But instead, her daughter went from getting mercy treatment to criminal treatment.
With Susan's statements on record and the physical evidence recovered, the full picture of her cold and calculated actions became clear. In the days leading up to the tragic night, people around 22-year-old Susan noticed something was off. Friends said she seemed troubled but never explained why. Coworkers said she spoke constantly about Tom Findlay. On the afternoon of October 25th, after arguing with Tom and realizing their relationship was over, Susan left work early. Instead of heading home, she picked her boys up from daycare, spent the next several hours driving aimlessly around Union. By 9 p.m., she arrived at the quiet, rural lake outside of town. A passing driver later reported seeing Susan alone in the front of her car, which directly contradicted being forced to drive around with her carjacker. Susan sat with her sons for several minutes. Sensing something unusual, Michael asked, "Mommy, where are we going?" Susan did not answer. Susan released her car into the lake where it drifted away before sinking. Once she sent her sons to their deaths, Susan did not call for help. She did not run into the water. She simply turned and walked away. She climbed the boat ramp, made her way over to Highway 49, then ran about 100 yards to the nearest home with its porch lights on. She banged on the door and told the homeowners her fabricated story. In a quiet moment during her final interrogation, an agent asked Susan, "If you had one wish, what would it be?" She replied, she wished that she had never told Tom Findlay about her affair with his father.
Oh my God, bro. Wow, this is so embarrassing. If someone was to ask you, what do you regret about the decisions that you made? Your first answer should be, I regret unaliving my kids. That's it. Nothing else is justifiable. The fact that she said that she regrets telling Tom Findlay what she did is a sign of a woman who is detached from reality. The truth of the matter is, she should not have gotten with Tom Findlay in the first place. She was a married woman. And secondly, she should not have unalived her kids even if she made all those bad decisions. I just think that she went from making small bad decisions to making bigger bad decisions to now she went over the edge and made a decision that was so bad that that decision landed her in prison. But yeah, man, that's crazy.
Susan Smith's trial began on July 10, 1995, while the O.J. Simpson trial was still dominating national headlines. With the public already captivated by that high-profile case, Susan's trial became another media spectacle. News outlets rented out dozens of storefronts for the length of the trial. Scaffolding was built to support camera crews, and the entire street leading up to the courthouse was lined with media trucks. A local skating rink was turned into a temporary hotel for reporters. Journalists even hid in trees and behind bushes, trying to capture any glimpse of those involved. The prosecution sought the death penalty, arguing that Susan's actions were premeditated. Their case focused on Susan's obsession with Tom Findlay and her desire to remove her children to win him back. Forensic experts testified that the boys were alive when the car entered the water. Tests were conducted to determine how long it would take for the car to float and then sink, to show the jury the experience from the boys' perspective. As the prosecution played the video of the car sinking reenactment, attempting to get it admitted into evidence, Susan and a paralegal were observed giggling and playing. The video was successfully admitted and
Wow. There's so many red flags, man. I've lost count. So many red flags. We got the confession about Tom Findlay. We got the thing with her dad, the thing with her stepdad, the thing with her marriage. Just the thing where her ex-boyfriend's dad, her not regretting that she unalived her kids, but regretting telling the ex-boyfriend, her laughing in court whenever they did the car reenactment. I mean, it just keeps stacking up, man. It just strikes me as this is an unstable woman for sure.
when it was later played for the jury, Susan, still sitting in the same position in the courtroom, was instead crying. The obvious difference between her private reaction and her public performance reinforced what law enforcement already suspected, that Susan's displays of emotions both before and after the crime were an act. The defense did not deny that Susan killed her children. Instead, they argued that she was mentally unstable. A psychiatrist testified that Susan suffered from chronic depression and adjustment disorders. He stated that to satisfy a need to feel wanted, that Susan was, at the time, having sexual relationships with her boss at Conso, his son Tom Findlay, her stepfather Beverly Russell, and her ex-husband David.
What? Oh, whoa, that changes. Wow, that's bad. That changes everything. That is crazy. Wow. So her boss's son, her stepdad, and David all happening. Oh my gosh. Yep. Jezebel spirit. This is insane. And she did all this while 19 and being a mom. Oh my. Yeah, this is crazy. This is why I wanted to do a review on this video, man. I knew it was crazy, bro. This is why I wanted to do a review on this video, because it is crazy. The nuances of things that you miss, man. This explains so much. I'm not saying that she's justifying what she did, but this is insane. That's why she didn't value the life of her boys, because of these. All she has seen as men up to this point has been nothing more than objects to sleep with. That's all she's seen men as. The emotions that she's had towards men were so bad that all she saw them as objects. That's why she didn't value her marriage. That's why she didn't value her boys. That's why she didn't value any of the men in her life. All they were to her are toys to play with. That's crazy.
Smith. Beverly Russell took the stand and admitted his abuse of Susan growing up and well beyond. After her arrest, he wrote her a letter expressing his guilt and suggesting that his actions contributed to what happened. He wrote, "I want to tell you how sorry I am for letting you down as a father. Many believe my failure didn't have anything to do with October 25th, but I believe it did. I want you to know that you can't take the blame for this whole tragedy." The prosecution argued that Beverly Russell's testimony was an attempt to shift some of the blame away from Susan. Another detail entered into evidence was that Susan had placed her wedding dress and wedding album in the trunk of the car before it sank, possibly a symbolic act of burying her past along with her sons, but also a potential indication.
That is not how you're supposed to do that. If you don't want your kids, put them up for adoption. Simple as that, or give the custody to the father. Give custody to the father. Don't unalive the kids. Simple as that. That's how you know she has mental issues. If you don't like your boys, give them to adoption or give them to the father. Simple as that. I don't understand the logic. If you have kids, your kids' life should be important to you. This is so sick to me. I'm disgusted.
Of her premeditation. The defense asked the jury to consider life in prison instead of the death penalty, claiming that Susan acted out of desperation, not cruelty. On July 22, 1995, after just 2.5 hours of deliberation, the jury found Susan guilty on both counts of murder. But instead of sentencing her to death, the jury recommended life in prison. This decision was largely influenced by testimony about Susan's mental health struggles and childhood trauma. However, at the time of her sentencing, a life sentence did not necessarily mean life behind bars. Under the law at the time, a life sentence meant that the defendant would be eligible for parole after 30 years. But jurors were not allowed to be informed of this fact. In fact, when the jury asked whether Susan would be eligible for parole, the judge instructed them to take a life sentence at its plain and usual meaning. The following year, laws changed to allow jurors to be informed about a defendant's parole eligibility. In the years following the loss of his sons, David Smith struggled to rebuild his life. He wrote a book sharing his story and pain called Beyond All Reason, My Life with Susan Smith. Some people saw the book as a way for him to process his grief. Others questioned his decision to profit from the tragedy. David remarried and divorced twice before marrying his current wife, Tiffany Smith. They have built a new life together, mostly staying out of the public eye. Susan's pattern of using people and relationships to get what she wanted continued once she was behind bars, involving both prison staff and fellow inmates.
All right, so before he continues any longer, I wanted to kind of talk briefly about the David guy who moved on. I think he talked about the David, right? Based on the situation, I think David wrote the book as a way of getting a lot of stuff off of his chest, a lot of stress off of his shoulders. And if he decides to make money from it, that's his prerogative. I don't think people should be mad at him for making money from it. What I think it comes down to is just a matter of keeping the boys' memory alive. And I would say that the book could have served as that as well. But let's continue. I'm actually gonna wrap up very soon. Let me kind of do a little bit more, one more segment, and then I'll wrap up.
Life with Susan Smith. Some people saw the book as a way for him to process his grief. Others questioned his decision to profit from the tragedy. David remarried and divorced twice before marrying his current wife, Tiffany Smith. They have built a new life together, mostly staying out of the public eye. Susan's pattern of using people and relationships to get what she wanted continued once she was behind bars, involving both prison staff and fellow inmates. In 2000, it was discovered that she had sex with a prison guard, who later served 3 months in jail for the...
Wow. Susan's a bad woman. Susan's a bad woman. Oh, God.
Relationship. Not long after, Susan became involved with Captain Alfred Rowe Jr., the head of security at the prison. According to Rowe, Susan would flirt with him, chat regularly, and like other inmates, even expose herself by dropping her towel as she passed him after showering. She also ratted out other inmates to gain his trust and get closer to him. Eventually, Susan offered him oral sex, which he accepted. Afterward, Rowe realized that he had just broken the law and risked up to 10 years in prison. Soon after, rumors started circulating, and Rowe suspected that Susan had turned him in. What he thought was a one-time, no-strings encounter became a full-blown scandal. Rowe was arrested, lost his job, and was sentenced to 5 years probation and 400 hours of community service. He was also added to the National Sex Offender Registry, where his name will remain for the rest of his life.
Oh, gosh, that is so sick. I cannot believe that this man's reputation and life was ruined by the woman. This goes to show you guys, man. Guys, we gotta exercise self-control, because this is sick to me. Like, something that was consensual, but because of the position that he was in and because of the type of woman she was, he got himself in a hot soup trouble. And now his reputation is forever ruined because of this woman. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up after this.
His marriage survived, but he has been unable to find steady work since. He believes that Susan reported him to manufacture a scandal that would get her transferred to Leith Correctional Institution, a prison closer to her mother. In the end, Susan was indeed transferred, and Roe lost everything. And Susan's relationships were not limited to staff. According to a former cellmate, Susan has also been in an ongoing romantic and sexual relationship with another female inmate who is black. An irony not lost on people familiar with Susan's original false claims about a black man carjacking her. When Susan was in an argument with one of her lovers, her cellmate overheard Susan tell the woman, "I killed my f***ing kids. Do you think I care about yours?" That former cellmate, named Christy, used to serve as Susan's guppy, acting as
That's crazy.
a lookout during Susan's sexual encounters, helping her obtain drugs and covering for her. At one point, Susan apologized to Christy for a close call that Christy had while covering for her. To reassure her, Susan promised to give her $300 the next day as a thank you, a huge amount to be exchanging behind bars.
All right, I can't watch anymore. So there you have it, guys. So with this particular documentary, obviously I did not finish the whole video. So the full video, the link is going to be in the description. You could go watch the rest of it. I kind of covered a big chunk of it. But I wanted to do a review on this because it was one of those things that when I found out about it, when I saw the original documentary on, I believe it's NBC or ABC, one of those major networks, I was very curious as a young kid. I wanted to understand the story and I wanted to kind of know more about it. And, you know, as a grown adult, getting to review it, I'm not going to lie, I was a lot more disgusted now as a grown up than I, and there's a lot more stuff that, you learn about people when you know, review some of these old stories, man. It's crazy to me that this was even a thing. But yeah, man, that's sick, man. That's so gross, man. I can't believe that this is a person that she was. But yeah, but that's it for today's video, guys. My total analysis of everything is that it just strikes me as though Susan came from a very messed up background with the situation with her dad, her stepdad. Also, on top of that, you know, marrying at such a young age, 19 years old, having unresolved trauma. Also, on top of that, you know, just using men for nothing more than S-play. Like, men were nothing more than tools for fun. And just overall, just the way she just operated as a person was just not a good person. I feel so bad for her kids. If her kids had lived, who knows what type of crazy, evil, nasty things she would have done with them. But with that being said, guys, if you're someone that likes me reviewing these type of content, I hope you like me reviewing this type of content. Leave it in the comment section as well. Also, I had some questions that I asked. You guys are more than welcome to answer those questions in the comment section. And this is just one of the few couple of videos that I look forward to making more of in the channel. I just like these type of documentaries to try to break down the mindset between individuals, because remember, my objective is about understanding power dynamics. In this Susan story, I noticed the power dynamics situation with her when it came to her close circle was toxic, especially with her parents and her stepdad, etc. One with herself was also very toxic, and then she influenced the whole nation to feel very bad for her. So she manipulated everybody that even knew who she was, and also manipulated people that were close to her. So yeah, she was pulling so many levers. I think the only reason why things went downhill for her was when she got caught. You know, if she had never been caught, who knows what would have happened. So, whew, that was a very long video, long documentary. Well, it's not too long, but you know. But with that being said, guys, definitely like, comment, share the video, hype the video, support the channel as we're growing to 10,000 subscribers. And yeah, I'll see you guys on the next video. Have a good day.